social media without seeing clips. So I've seen little bits, but I haven't sat down and actually studied and watched it yet.
Because?
It still hurts. You know, it's quite. It was a heartbreaking thing to have to go through. And I worked literally 8 years, sacrificed so much. So I sacrificed 6 years of my life just for that moment. And I wasn't present in the things that I was doing, you know, in my training sessions and the things that I achieved. It was like, right, okay, I've achieved that, it's fine. You know, I'm going to move on, because all that mattered for me was an Olympic medal, at least a bronze medal. So having to go through that was a very, very heartbreaking thing to go through.
But
Yeah.
we live and learn. What you said when it was on is there are bigger and brighter things ahead this weekend, for example.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I'm very excited. What a card to do it on, you know. Joyce, Hergovic, I used to watch them boys in the 2016 Rio Olympics, and look what they've gone on to achieve now. So just to be a part of their card for my first... I've always had it in the back of my mind, you know. When I started boxing, I remember watching Anthony Joshua for the first time, and he was a professional at the time. And I didn't really understand amateur boxing, so I watched his sort of how he started boxing. It was amateur, so I thought, right, let's get into amateur boxing. I got on the Team GB setup and I've obviously gone into the Olympics. But now I've always knew I'm going to be a professional boxer. I'm going to get people. I'm going to sell arenas out, and I'm going to get people watching Delicious Orie box.
Tell us a bit about the boxing game, because you came to it very late. Is that right? 18 years old? Yeah,
I was 18. I think it's not. I wouldn't say it's common, but for heavyweights, one of the things, again, like I said, I've seen Anthony Joshua. He did it, and he started when I was 18. Joyce, I believe, started in his early 20s. So that was a big driver for me to start. If it wasn't for them, you know, paving a path for me, I wouldn't have done it. Because
but help other people who've not been drawn to boxing.
Yeah.
There's a big deal to go into boxing. It's not like other sports, is it? There's a fundamental difference there, where you're going to get hurt, and the risks are so tangible. You're 18 years old and you're going, you know, I fancy a go at this, when most people will be saying just the reverse. What is it that's in there?
I'll tell you what, it was difficult. I remember having my first sparring session. I've never done any combat sport before in my life, and I remember being hit for the first time in my nose, and I couldn't even describe the pain. It was like, am I going to be going through this for the next few years? But it was something that I accepted very, very early on. Even the smell of the gym, you know, all these things, like, they were all new to me at that age. But it was something I accepted early on. I was thinking, this is what I'm decided to do, and I'm going to go all the way. You can't, you know, you can play other sports, you can't play boxing. So it was very, very important for me. When I got into boxing, it was like, I'm going to take this very seriously, and I'm going to dedicate my life to it. And here we are today.
Can I ask about your background, your childhood? Born in Moscow, Nigerian father, is that right? And then moving to the UK when you were 7. That's quite unusual. What was that like? Yeah,
I mean, I do remember the move. I remember my dad telling me, in Russian, of course, because I was only speaking Russian at the time, we're going to move to the United Kingdom. And I was like, oh, OK, cool. I moved over to the UK. I remember being in class.
What did you know about the UK then when you were growing up?
To be honest, I didn't know absolutely anything, apart from the fact that, you know, we speak English, which I didn't speak at all at the time. But I remember being in year 4, that was my first year in the UK, and I was thinking, wow, this class is very diverse, you know? You've got different sort of cultures, different backgrounds, and I was like, you know, it spoke out to me a little bit. Another thing that I noticed, opportunity. Because
there aren't as many people from diverse backgrounds in Moscow.
Exactly, it was very much, you know, just Russians, basically, you know. But, yeah, another thing I noticed was opportunity. It was like I was able to go to English clubs, be able to play basketball. It was all for free. I couldn't believe it, you know. I was grabbing everything, and I kept doing that all the way till now, basically, and you know, getting as much opportunity as I possibly could, going to school, uni, being an athlete, like grabbing with both hands.
I'm sure you've been asked this a million times before about your name, and it's a great thing to be a boxer to have a memorable name. Your name is very memorable. What's the history of your name?
My dad had that foresight. I think it took a big gamble, like, but he had the foresight. No, my dad's a big fan of it. I believe there's a boy band called Boys to Men, and there's a singer on there called Delius, and he just took inspiration of that, and he was like, yeah, delicious. And here we are.
So from Delius to delicious, but like you say, the pressure's on.
The pressure's on. He put it on me.
To be good-looking, to be successful, to have a career in something where you stand out.
Yeah, I mean, he put it on. I mean, I had to learn to fight with the name of like Delicious, I guess.
And when is the bout? When's your fight?
So it's this Saturday.
Okay.
It's in the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester.
Are you training today?
I'll do little bits.
What's that mean?
I'll do bits. So, like, we're going to sharpen up.
offering to spar?
I was going to say, you want to do a little. You want to do a little bit.
Curious from a distance. Good luck.
I really
we wish
appreciate
you well. Thank you very much.
Well done for
coming in.
bouncing back. It sounds like it's been a massive challenge. We wish you luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're back to